Also, Leroy mentioned, and Russell Garcia will have a session on this, I think tomorrow, on basically the tribal bridges are all being required to be inspected. This is a change for the tribal program, but it is not a change for Federal Highway Administration. We have been inspecting all the federal aid bridges for years now, and it has been mandatory inspection basically every 2 years. And the bridges in tribal country are every bit as important as the rest of the national bridges. So we're going to be adding this to the program. So I realize there's some additional cost to that, but it's basically a really good thing that we're moving in that particular direction. The other thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today is the safety program. I think all of you realize that safety is the #1 initiative for the Federal Highway Administration and for the DOT. It's a priority for us, and it has been a priority for a very long time. And as I mentioned probably at the Tribal Safety Summit, to me, each life is precious. And in your communities, being as small as some of them are, every fatality that you have can be personal. It can be your wife. It can be your mother, your son, your daughter, your friend, your neighbor. And we all have to take control of that. We have to own that situation and try to do things differently. Now we're going to have some money for that. We're going to have this 2% that's coming off. And as Leroy mentioned, the Tribal Transportation Program Coordinating Committee has gotten together and met over the past couple of months to try to decide how best to implement that particular program. So there's been some significant work done in that particular area that we're going to be looking for feedback for. And then hopefully we'll be issuing the final guidance and a call for projects probably sometime after the new year. So we'll be looking to make some significant improvements there. But each of you need to be personally involved to make sure that your voice is heard on where you want to go with these particular programs and how to improve safety in your particular community. And, Federal Highway will be there to help you. You just have to let us know what it is that you would like to do, and we'll see how we can assist you in doing that. I'm sure many of you have regular interactions with our tribal coordinators and probably even with the Resource Center staff who can provide technical assistance on many different areas of safety. I don't have to tell you that the fatality rates in Indian country are 2 to 3 times the national average. And over the past couple of years, we've actually been decreasing the number of fatalities. But unfortunately, this calendar year, in many of the states that I was previously overseeing, we have increased the number of fatalities. So once again, we have a lot of work to do. Now, we might know the cause of that. Maybe it is an increase at BMT. Maybe it is because the economy is getting better and more people are driving. And maybe it is because the gasoline prices are down. But more than likely, it's because of the conditions of some of our roads. Because of the remote locations of some of our roads. In other words, our emergency services can't get out there fast enough to save people. We can make a difference there. We can do things differently. We're going to continue to focus on our 4 E's, the engineering, the enforcement, the education, and the emergency services. So we're going to be looking to do things in that particular area. But as I mentioned before, with that safety funds, we're going to be using that money for additional education and additional outreach. So not just for projects, but for other areas as well. We're going to focus on some of the issues that are important to you. Maybe the seatbelt usage. We all know that seatbelts save lives, but in many cases, for some societal reason, we don't want to use seatbelts. Why is that? There are numerous lives that we have proven have been saved because people use their seatbelts. Impaired driving. We've been fighting impaired driving for a very, very long time. We have our MADs and our SADs, our Students Against Drunk Driving, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. There's all kinds of issues that we can do. And it's become much more important these days. Another thing that our secretary has been vehement about and really vigilant in fighting this particular area is our iPhones. Good golly, I didn't have a phone for the longest time when I was growing up, and I managed to survive, believe it or not. So the fact is, we shouldn't be texting and driving. Our secretary and our administrator are constantly telling us, put our phones in the glove box so that we can't reach them. Because when they ring, we all access them. We're afraid we're going to miss something. But we can do that better. And the other thing that's really important in the safety area is the quality of our data. We're using data to make decisions more and more. And if we don't have good quality data, how can we make good decisions? So we really need to be looking to improve the quality of the data that we have with respect to safety. The other area we want to talk about, and it's a perfect environment, there are so many people here. We need to foster communication, collaboration, cooperation, coordination. There are so many wonderful things that different folks in here have done with respect to their transportation system that we can learn from others and share some of the wonderful things that you've done. So this is a great opportunity to use your network and to build a better network so that we can have some very good lessons learned. We can also talk together about some of the various innovations and technologies that are going on. And with respect to that, I'm just going to briefly mention Everyday Counts because Greg Nadeau, our Deputy Administrator, is going to be here to talk to you guys a little bit more about that. But this afternoon we have a wonderful opportunity. We are bringing you some of the latest and greatest technologies that we have seen that is really working and making a difference around the country. So we're really pleased to bring some of these different concepts to you for the first time. Some of the ones that I found very, very interesting that I really enjoyed is the intelligent compaction for pavements. It gives us basically probably more durable pavements in the long run. The 3D modeling, you're going to find that a really interesting and amazing technology, as well as Safety Edge. By just putting a boot as we're paving and decreasing the angle of the edge of pavement, we can save lives. So there's lots of wonderful things that we're going to share with you today. Things that are going to help us build better products, faster and smarter, and in many cases, more cost effectively. So I want to strongly encourage you to look at some of those sessions this afternoon if you can. Find some ones that are going to work for you and attend some of those particular sessions. There's also one on prefabricated bridge elements. So maybe, yes, we've got some additional money for bridges, our 2% set aside. We've got some additional requirements now to inspect bridges, but maybe there's some opportunity to do things a little bit differently. One thing that they probably didn't bring with us that we've seen that started in Greg's home state of Maine is a bridge in a backpack. Believe it or not, you can build a bridge from a backpack. They're all the various elements or pieces that need to put that small bridge together are right there, really easy to do. So I think that's an opportunity for change. So I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm going to be here for the week because it's an opportunity for me to meet many of you, and I really look forward to that. So together we can learn the various issues that we've got in your particular community, and together we can map out the future and work on that particular area. So thank you again.
As was mentioned, I am the current chairman for the Tribal Transportation Program Coordinating Committee. It's been several years I've been on that committee, but believe me, the work is very challenging in terms of how we can come to recommendations and come to agreements in terms of what's in the best interest for all tribes and Alaskan villages across the country. And I think, like I mentioned, it's always good to be sitting there at the table with FHWA and BIA to formulate viable programs. Briefly, I'm going to go through several items here related to the background of the coordinating committee, leadership members, current work issues, and so forth. And we should take note of the next meeting because that would be a good time to get some updates in terms of where we're at and what we're doing. Keep in mind, this advisory group is guided by federal regulations. If you pull out your 25 CFR Part 170, there's certain sections in that regulations that make reference to our responsibilities and what work we need to do. We're not so much as an advocacy group, we're more of a quasi-federal employee type group where we're making key policy and funding recommendations to the federal government. Basically, that's a brief mention of our responsibilities. A key thing that we do include in here that we don't replace, we basically supplement the government-to-government consultation that has all been going on for the past decades in terms of working with the federal government. So it's good that the U.S. Department of Transportation, as well as Congress, recognizes that Indian tribes and Alaskan villages have a unique status. The basis of formulating this advisory group comes through the Secretary of the Interior. There's going to be periodic announcements in the federal regulations that there's soliciting recommendations from tribes, tribal leaders to be on this committee. Right now, as it is, there's one primary, one alternate from each of the 12 BIA regions. And again, I basically mentioned some of the responsibilities. Again, if you look it up in the regulations, you're going to find this exactly written on there. Basically, in terms of a stewardship plan, developing policies, procedures, specific transportation activities that these funds could be used for, including transit policies, management system policies, procedures, and of course, just the funded formula that's in here. You have a funded formula that's under Safety Lou, and now we're talking about a new funded formula for MAP 21. These are issues that this advisory committee looks at. Basically, I could just simply say everything that Mr. Gishi had mentioned and Ms. Curtis mentioned, we're right in the thick of things in terms of discussing these programs, issues, and other items. The reason why TTP is in red is right now I'm making reference to the federal regulations. If you do read it, you're going to see IRR. We're in that transition mode. We're going from an Indian reservation roads program to a tribal transportation program. I think we basically all know that, you know. We also provide recommendations at a national level in terms of, again, just implementing these federal regulations. And of course, the other challenge, again, is just looking at the inventory. You're going to be hearing again that it's critical that we get our inventory updated, including our bridges and so forth. So these are the items we continue to address, get involved with in terms of what is the best recommendations we can make to the FHWA and BIA. We also mentioned that there's some existing programs that continue to be in MAP 21. It's good that we have high priority programs still in place in terms of how we can use some of these funds. As a matter of fact, it was a good recommendation from the committee that as we were developing our safety program under MAP 21, some of these recommendations came exactly from the HPP program in terms of where there was a good structure in terms of what programs are eligible, what are the funding amounts, what's the criteria for scoring proposals and so forth. At this time, I just want to mention that the current membership includes myself. Jackie Hosler is our vice chair and our secretary, Rick Galloway. But we also have region members. And of course, we can't forget the other two members, Leroy Gishi, which you heard from this morning. Mr. Bob Sparrow is sitting here in the back. He's over here too. Let's give him a hand. The committee will break into several work groups. Initially, there were 4 work groups, but lately we've been operating in terms of just having 2 key work groups. I know Zach Hawkins and Jackie Hostler are the co-chairs for the Technical Standards and Funding Committee, the Delivery Services and Policy. We've been having Pete Red Tomahawk and Sam Thomas also serve as the co-chairs for these committees as well. Now, this is where the work really gets down to in terms of looking at the regulations, the programs, the funding, all the technical part. So if you're into policy and funding formulas, this is where this work does occur. Current work issues. Believe me, there's many work issues that have been addressed, those that have been taken several years to complete, and now with MAP 21 in place, we're looking at that transition. We're looking at how we can make those programs work. And I think the big challenge that we're going to always have is how can we get our work done in a timely manner. Proposed roads, we look, for example, we looked at the definitions of just defining what is a proposed road. Believe me, it took time. At times we were in disagreement, at times we were good recommendations, but eventually it came to be to where we were able to come up with definitions, the requirements, what is eligible in terms of funded requirements. The work was done, it was completed, and when you feel that you put all these 24, 26 individuals in a room and come to agreement, that is a huge accomplishment. So with that, we submitted our final product to FHWA and BIA. We're just waiting for the final word in terms of implementation. Same way in terms of access roads. Access roads is another one we were looking at. Same issues in terms of definitions on down to what our activities are eligible. That was completed by the committee. We presented our final product to both agencies. Current work issue that we just recently completed was again just recommending the application criteria, looking at the process, the time frames, what areas are eligible that we'll be looking at, and was mentioned today that there's going to be a workshop that will focus in this area. So this was a good accomplishment that the committee was able to complete just recently. But believe me, when our next meeting comes up, which is in January 29th to the 31st in Albuquerque, we'll again have a full agenda in terms of how we can implement these activities. On that note, I just want to say that it's going to be very challenging in terms of getting what work that needs to be done and doing it timely and getting the information to our region tribes to keep you updated. And of course, then when the final product is completed, continuing to work with the BIA and FHWA on really implementing these programs to get them out to the tribal regions and areas. So we really need your help in that to support what efforts we can do. And believe me, Bob and his team really provide that technical guidance in terms of how we can get our work so that we can present it to the top administrators. So on that note, I myself will be here all week. If there's any questions, comments, suggestions, we're always looking for new members to serve on this committee. So with that, probably Leroy Gish is the best contact in terms of this current status of the membership of the committee. So I'll push those questions on to him for that note. So again, thank you very much. It's good to be here. It's good to be in the Southwest region. Sometimes coming from Acapulco, Pueblo, and New Mexico, we tend to think that we're leaving our traditional homelands, but we basically have always been here in the Southwest region, Pueblo tribes and the Southern tribes. So it's really home to be down in this area. So again, with that, thank you.
I've got actually a couple of questions. I'm Julianne Baltar. I'm from the Bristol Bay Native Association in Dillingham, Alaska. And my first question is for Leroy. Leroy, I know that there have been a number of sections in the IRR program regulations that have been essentially made obsolete by both Safety Lou and now the new MAP 21. Are there any plans on behalf of BIA to issue some kind of notice of the sections that are obsolete and some type of interim guidance to both the BIA regions of the tribe?
Thank you. As a matter of fact, one of the emphasis that we have currently, not only within BIA, but with Federal Lands Highway, is to begin actually the immediate process of updating those regulations. We had a number of instances in which we were not able to get out the changes as a result of Safety Lou in terms of some major areas that you're talking about. So we're actually going forward with that process. It will involve a process in which we will actually be able to go out with some ability to provide some information on the changes in the sections that we have. We did work with the coordinating committee in terms of updating those sections that were associated with the changes in Safety Lou, and unfortunately we're not able to get those out, which those will become part of that process. In addition to, again, the development, and that's why it's critical that we get input in terms of from the coordinating committee and from tribes in terms of the safety, tribal safety, as well as those other programs that are out there. And we're anticipating that beginning in January, we will have something that we can be able to get out there for people to begin to start looking at, get comments on, and of course, that's all preliminary before we begin the actual process of the notice of proposed rulemaking, and then of course a number of outreach meetings again after that. So we anticipate that we will have 2 rounds of outreach in which we'll be able to do that. The critical part of this is, of course, you know, we've got 2 years for this highway bill. October 1, 2014, I don't think it's likely, but there is a possibility that we will have something new, which again, we make some changes. So we've made our folks, at least from the interior, know how important it is that we move this along, expedite this process in terms of what we have to do. And that's the whole intent, to be able to catch up in a lot of areas of these not only obsolete provisions within the program. I think we're seeing much more as a result of MAP 21 as a whole.
Okay, and then I have a question for Joyce. And by the way, thank you both for being here today. It's great to have you. On the tribal transportation program, you went in some detail on what's going on with the MAP 21 tribal transportation program funding formula, the distribution that's used to distribute the funds to the tribes. I haven't talked to anybody that's happy with the MAP 21 funding formula for tribes. And I mean, there seems to be general feeling throughout that it's not very good. It was sort of something that Congress seemed to throw together at the last minute in conference committee. Will Federal Highway, working with the administration, be putting together a recommendation to Congress for a new funding formula in the next round, which is just, I mean, I would think that Federal Highway is working on this right now, as far as you usually start working on reauthorizations about 2 years before they're due, so you're at that point right now. Will the Federal Highway be recommending something to Congress, and if so, would they be working with the tribes on outreach to come up with something that's reasonable and responsive? Thank you.
Juliana, respond? We are not starting on reauthorization just yet. We're going to start on reauthorization probably in the March timeframe. And the reason for that is we want to see, because this bill was transformational, there were some significant changes, so we need to see how those changes are going to play out first before we know. So probably in the March-April timeframe, we're going to be starting to put together our thoughts on what a new bill should look like. And certainly, we're having a lot of issues and problems with the formula that was in statute. We'll be looking at that, and absolutely, we're going to be reaching out to all of our partners, customers, stakeholders, tribes, everybody that we interact with, to get their input on what the new bill will look like. Not just for the tribal transportation program, but for the access program and the federal lands transportation program as well, because there are opportunities in some of those other bills for the tribal community as well.
Yes, Sam Thomas, the last briefing. I just want to allude to the theme of the conference is everyday counts, and with such a short timeline within MAP 21, I think it's important for federal lands, highways, and federal highways to go out and identify what this really means as far as the consolidation of programs. It took 55 programs and consolidated. Being able to read through that document and find out where each one of those programs fits is kind of cumbersome. So at this conference, it'd be nice to know we're going after federal lands highway discretionary money. You know, it's been lumped into the access program or one of those programs. So I think just the theme with everyday counts and going into after the president gets seated and looking at the next authorization, because this is such a short window of opportunity. So I just wanted to identify that. Thanks.
Yeah, my name is Wes Cochran from Fort Belknap. I'm a transportation planner, and welcome everybody, and thank you for showing up. And it's good to see some smart and intelligent and very capable people out there behind the pews. At any rate, this question's for Leroy. With respect to the cost to construct update, that number is reflective of like the geopolitical area of our area, say north central Montana. We recently had a new road. It was about a 5-mile road, start to finish, a virgin road, I guess they call them. And the total cost was $5.4 million. And so, we have county documentation. It was a county road. respect to that, I was wondering, what would we do with this number with regards to our region that would update the cost to construct? The sequential procedure for documenting that number and changing in brief disk.
That's a good question. One of the things that we need to emphasize, we mentioned earlier that MAP 21 changed the formula. A big part of that formula that we replaced, considered, was question 10, and that referenced the cost to construct as well as the vehicle miles traveled data, which is specifically associated with each section or route that's out there and also associated with the tribe. We want to continue to emphasize the importance of updating the inventory. The inventory not only is information that addresses from the standpoint of your individual needs from a tribal perspective, it is the basis for which you have the capability of expending funds, not only from the TTP program, but from other programs, particularly those programs which come from the federal aid side. It's the eligibility, of course, is they have to meet the criteria of being a public road. So it's something that we work with the coordinating committee, and they've emphasized that. Now, part of the process that answers the question, the cost to construct data is also a necessary and important part of reporting. We report this data on an annual basis to the Federal Highway Administration. It is the basis for which we're able to establish and continue to inform those people who have the ability to influence our program with information on need. Currently, we have a need that is over $70 billion, and that number comes as a result of a compilation of need associated with each tribe and each region. The process to update that is to continue on an annual basis. There are procedures that are out there, a policy that has been out there since 1994 to the regions available on how to go through the process of updating that information. And it is data that comes from bid tabs that are associated with those elements that are identified as grade and drain, paving, and so forth. And so to get more information, we certainly can help you from our central office standpoint. Mr. Sheldon Kipp, who will be here later today and tomorrow. He'll be doing an update on the inventory throughout the week also, but also talking about that. That's, again, very important. I appreciate that question because we have to continue to maintain the inventory. We know that there's going to be a reduction in emphasis in updating the inventory because there's so much, it drove the formula so dramatically in the past that people are going to not want to do that. But it's important that you do because we do have a 2-year bill. We don't know where we're going to go on. We had someone reported that there are a number of tribes who maybe are not satisfied with the formula. So you never know what's going to happen. So it's important to be able to continue to update that information that's associated with the unique projects that are on specific Indian reservations lands. Thank you.
And Wes, if I understood your question correctly, if indeed that particular roadway is a state or county road and provides access to tribal land or whatever, it's still eligible for the access program. So, you could apply for those type of funds as well to take care of this particular project.
Good morning. I just wanted to say something very briefly before the next question. In response to Sam's question earlier and also to Wes's, there will be a session on Friday that kind of does discuss some of the programs that formerly you would have recognized under safety that now appear under MAP 21. I'll be discussing the access program as well as some of the other programs under MAP 21. We applied some of the eligibilities from some of the programs in which you were familiar, such as the Public Lands Highway Discretionary Program, TE, and rec trails and things like that. So on your agenda, the session on Friday morning is called Tribal Eligibility Outside TTP. It's important pay and again, transportation alternatives, Plenary access program, and I'll also be speaking a little bit to the Ferry Road program now as well. So I just wanted to mention that.
And Cindy, there is a crosswalk that the Federal Highway Office of Policy did between the two bills so that you can see which programs fell under which one, and that should be on the MAP 21 website.
For Ms. Curtis and Mr. Gishi, I believe back in 2011 there was an initiative between FHWA and BIA to gain some consistency between the functional classification of roads between FHWA and BIA. And many of the tribes in the early part of 2012 received requests for information from, I believe it was Johnson and Associates, regarding specific roads within the inventories. And I was wondering if we're going to have an update on that project at this conference.
Yes, we are. And again, the question earlier regarding cost of construction inventory updates was a good question. This is also a follow-up. It's one of the things that we realized as part of the 2008 FHWA comprehensive study is that we do have errors in the inventory in the process of updating them, not only as a result of question 10, but also the continuation of that congressional initiative has to continue to be ongoing. So we will update you in these sessions with what has happened, what has continued to happen, and particularly from the standpoint of how it impacts MAP 21, in particular, how we intend to close out that process and develop the continuous improvement effort for making sure the inventory is updated and accurate, because it continues to be an area that just really describes the program, the assets, and the need that's out there. So I appreciate it. We will cover that.